Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be looking at two really fascinating examples of channeling.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got the law of one, and that's coming from an entity called Ra.
Right?
And then we have the teachings of Abraham,
Okay.
and that's channeled through Esther Hicks.
Yeah,
It's going to be a wild ride.
it really is. They're both about spiritual evolution and universal laws, but in such different ways.
I like that.
Yeah,
It's like they're looking at the same mountain from two totally different sides.
exactly.
So maybe we can start with the law of one.
Sure.
This all began back in 1981 with a group called LL Research.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. And they facilitated these channeling sessions. And the source that they connected with called itself Ra
Oh, wow.
and claimed to be an extraterrestrial entity. You ever heard of anything like that before?
I mean, it's definitely unique. The idea of an extraterrestrial being communicating through channeling, it's not something you hear every day.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So Ra describes itself as a sixth density social memory complex. So essentially a collective consciousness of beings far beyond our current level of understanding.
It's like trying to imagine all the knowledge and experiences of an entire civilization merged into one being. It's really mind-boggling.
It really is when you think about it.
Yeah.
So we've got this incredibly advanced being from another planet communicating through this group of humans.
Right.
What kind of information did Red actually share with them?
Well, the law of one covers a really wide range of topics,
Yeah.
but there are some core concepts like this idea of harvest, which is essentially this idea that souls are kind of evaluated for their spiritual progress at the end of a cycle.
Okay, so it's like a report card in a way.
In a way,
Yeah.
yeah. And then it also delves into the concept of service to others versus service to self.
Well, that's a big one.
Yeah, and it suggests that we actually have a choice in how we approach our spiritual journey.
So that makes you think about, every day, like the choices you're making
It really does.
and how they might contribute to your spiritual growth.
Yeah.
The law of one also mentions these densities as levels of spiritual evolution. Can you break that down a bit?
Densities are kind of like stages of consciousness, if you will.
Okay.
Each with its own set of challenges and opportunities for growth.
Okay.
Ra describes our current level of awareness as third density moving towards fourth.
Gotcha.
And fourth density is associated with greater compassion and understanding.
Right.
And then the higher densities kind of move even further beyond our comprehension at this point.
Okay, so it's like we're all on this evolutionary ladder,
Yeah.
climbing towards higher levels of consciousness.
Right.
What about the style of communication? How does Ra actually convey all this information?
Ra's communication is very formal
Okay.
and precise, almost like reading a scientific paper on spirituality. It can feel a bit dense at times,
I can imagine.
but there's a real emphasis on clarity and accuracy, like they're trying to avoid any misinterpretations.
Yeah, that makes sense given the complex nature of the information.
Right.
And then there's this whole thing about Ra and the pyramids. That's got to be like one of the most intriguing parts, right?
Oh, absolutely. The Law of One suggests that Ra had some involvement in the construction of the pyramids,
Wow.
maybe acting as guides or advisors. It really captures the imagination.
Yeah.
And makes you wonder about the true history of our planet.
Yeah, it's like ancient mystery meets science fiction.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Abraham Hicks.
Okay.
These teachings kind of popped up a few years later, around 1985,
Right.
and they're channeled through Esther Hicks.
Yeah, and unlike Ra, who is channeled by a group, Abraham comes through Esther specifically.
Right, so it's a one-on-one connection there.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how different these channeling experiences can be.
It is.
Right, and while Ra is this singular entity, Abraham describes itself as a collective consciousness too,
Okay.
but not from a specific planet or dimension. They refer to themselves as a group of non-physical entities.
So a group of non-physical beings communicating through a human channel.
Exact.
That definitely sets the stage for a different kind of conversation than what we see with Ra. What's the main message that comes through from Abraham?
Well, Abraham's teachings are all about well-being,
Okay.
the law of attraction, and manifesting desires. They really emphasize aligning with something called source energy.
Source energy.
Yeah, it's like this universal force of love and creation.
Okay, so instead of focusing on cosmic evolution and densities,
Right.
Abraham is more grounded in helping people live better lives in the present moment.
Exactly. It's about understanding your own power to create your reality through your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs.
So it's like a more practical, hands-on approach to spirituality.
Very much so.
What are some of the tools or techniques that Abraham offers for achieving this well-being and manifesting desires?
One of the key tools is the emotional guidance scale.
Okay.
It's like a hierarchy of emotions with joy and love at the top, and then fear and despair at the bottom.
Oh, wow.
And the idea is to use your emotions as a guide to see how aligned you are with your desires.
So if you're feeling down or frustrated, it's a sign that you're not in alignment with what you truly want.
Right? It's like a call to shift your focus
Okay.
and choose thoughts that feel better, which will then lead to experiences that resonate with that higher vibration.
I can see how that could be helpful for navigating daily life.
Yeah.
Instead of getting bogged down by negativity,
Yeah,
you can use those emotions as a compass to point you in a better direction.
exactly.
What about manifesting? How does Abraham approach that?
Abraham emphasizes the law of attraction,
Okay.
which states that the
Right.
energy you put out into the world is what you attract back to yourself.
Makes sense.
So if you focus on abundance, gratitude, and joy, you're more likely to experience those things.
Okay, so positive thoughts attract positive experiences.
Yeah.
But how do you actually shift your energy and focus on those positive thoughts?
Right.
It can't always be easy to stay positive, especially when life throws you curveballs.
Well, that's where techniques like visualization and affirmations come in.
Okay.
And Abraham also talks about the importance of aligning with source energy, which they describe as this pure positive energy that flows through all of creation.
So it's like tapping into this universal power source and allowing it to flow through you.
Exactly. And by aligning with the source energy, you're raising your vibration and attracting experiences that match that higher frequency.
This reminds me of something we were talking about with the law of one,
Okay?
the idea of choosing service to others versus service to self.
Right.
Do you see a connection between that concept and Abraham's teachings on aligning with source energy?
That's a really interesting connection. Choosing service to others is essentially about aligning with a higher purpose
Okay.
beyond your own individual needs.
Yeah,
And aligning with source energy is about connecting with this universal force of love and creation,
I see.
which naturally leads to a more expansive perspective.
So both paths encourage us to move beyond self-centeredness and connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
One through a focus on service, the other through aligning with source energy.
It highlights how different approaches can lead to similar outcomes. Both paths are about expanding our consciousness and recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
Now, Abraham also has this intriguing idea about the 17-second rule.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The 17-second rule is all about momentum.
Okay.
Abraham teaches that if you can hold a thought for 17 seconds without contradicting it, you start to build momentum toward manifesting that thought into reality.
So if you're trying to manifest something specific, you need to hold that thought in your mind for at least 17 seconds without letting any doubt creep in.
Exactly. And by doing so, you're shifting your energy and aligning with the vibration of your desire.
It sounds almost too simple. Does it really work that way?
Well, like any technique, it requires practice and consistency.
Sure.
But the idea is that you're training your mind to focus on what you want
Right.
rather than what you don't want.
That makes sense. It's about intentionally shifting your attention towards your desired outcome.
Yes.
Do you see any similarities between the 17-second rule and what Ra describes as the power of intention and focused consciousness?
There's definitely a parallel there.
Okay.
Both Ra and Abraham emphasize the power of our thoughts to create our reality.
It's fascinating to see how these seemingly different channelings converge on certain key ideas.
It is.
But let's go back to Abraham for a moment.
Yeah.
One of the things I find really interesting is the way they communicate.
Yeah.
It's so different from the formal, almost scientific language of Ra.
Absolutely. Abraham's tone is very conversational, almost like a friend chatting with you.
Yeah.
They use humor and relatable examples, which makes the teachings very accessible and engaging.
It's a stark contrast to the dense, complex language of the law of one. What do you think accounts for this difference in communication style?
I think it reflects the different intentions behind each channeling.
Okay.
Ra is presenting this vast cosmology and these intricate spiritual principles.
Great.
Abraham is offering guidance for everyday life and personal growth.
So Ra is focused on the big picture of cosmic evolution, while Abraham is more about the nitty-gritty of navigating human experience and creating a joyful life.
Exactly. And their communication styles reflect those different focuses.
This is also fascinating. We've got these two distinct channelings, each with its own unique perspective and approach to spirituality.
Right.
But for someone who's just starting to explore these ideas, it might feel a bit overwhelming.
I can imagine.
Where do you even begin to make sense of it all?
Well, it's important to remember that both the Law of One and Abraham Hicks offer just that perspectives.
Okay.
They're not meant to be taken as absolute truths.
Yeah.
It's about exploring these ideas, seeing what resonates with you, and integrating what feels right into your own understanding.
So it's more about personal exploration and discovery than blindly accepting everything you hear.
Exactly. It's about cultivating discernment and trusting your own inner guidance.
Now, we've talked a lot about the content of these channelings,
Right.
but I'm also curious about the channeling process itself. How does it actually work?
Well, channeling is essentially a form of communication
Oh,
where a human acts as a conduit for a non-physical entity or consciousness to express itself.
so it's like tuning into a different frequency and allowing that energy to flow through you.
You could think of it that way. It's a state of heightened receptivity
Okay.
where the channel opens themselves to receive and transmit information from another source.
That sounds incredible, but also a bit mysterious.
Yeah.
Are there any risks or challenges involved in channeling?
Like anything, there are potential challenges.
Sure.
The channel needs to be grounded and clear to avoid distorting the information.
Right.
And it's important to approach channeling with discernment, recognizing that not all sources are benevolent or accurate.
So it's not just about passively receiving information. It requires a level of awareness and responsibility on the part of the channel.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating a conscious connection and ensuring that the information is aligned with the highest good.
That makes sense. It's about approaching channeling with respect, intention, and a commitment to integrity. But ultimately, it seems like both Ra and Abraham are guiding us towards the same core principles: love, understanding, and spiritual growth.
That's a great observation. Despite their different origins and communication styles, they both point us toward a path of expanding consciousness and recognizing our connection to something larger than ourselves.
It's like they're offering different maps to the same destination. One focuses on cosmic laws and the journey of the soul, while the other emphasizes personal empowerment and creating a joyful life.
It's a beautiful reminder that there are many paths to spiritual awakening, and each individual gets to choose the one that resonates most deeply with them.
That's a really empowering message. It means we have the freedom to explore different perspectives and create our own unique spiritual journey.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you and trusting your own inner guidance.
Yeah, it really is amazing to think about, how these teachings can really expand our understanding of ourselves and the universe, even if they come from sources that might seem a little out there to some people.
It's true. They're offering us new lenses to view reality through challenging our assumptions and opening up possibilities that we may not have considered before. Right? Like suddenly we're not just these isolated beings on a random planet. We're part of this vast cosmic dance of energy and consciousness, evolving and growing alongside countless other beings.
Exactly. And it's not just about these abstract concepts either. Both Ra and Abraham actually offer practical guidance for navigating life's challenges. Whether it's choosing service to others or aligning with source energy, or using tools like the emotional guidance scale and the 17-second rule, these teachings can really empower us to create more fulfilling lives.
I'm curious, when you first encountered these channelings, what was your initial reaction? Did you find yourself instantly drawn to one over the other?
I'll admit when I first delved into the Law of One, I was a bit intimidated by the density of the material
I hear you.
and the complex language. It took me some time and effort to really grasp the concepts.
Yeah, it's not exactly light reading. What about Abraham Hicks? Did those teachings resonate with you more immediately?
I found Abraham's teachings to be more accessible right off the bat.
The conversational style and the focus on practical application really appealed to me. It felt like something I could apply to my life right away.
Yeah, they really do have a way of making these complex ideas feel relatable and achievable.
Yeah.
But even with the Law of One, did you eventually find yourself connecting with the material on a deeper level?
Absolutely. The more I studied the Law of One, the more I appreciated the depth and scope of its wisdom.
Yeah.
It's a truly mind-expanding body of work, and it has profoundly influenced my understanding of consciousness and spirituality.
So it seems like both channelings have something valuable to offer, even if they approach it from different angles.
For sure. And I think for the listener, the key is to approach both with an open mind and a willingness to explore.
Right.
See what resonates with you, what challenges you, and what sparks your own inner knowing.
It's like a buffet of spiritual wisdom. You get to sample different flavors and see what nourishes your soul.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
don't be afraid to mix and match. You might find that certain concepts from the Law of One complement those from Abraham Hicks, creating a unique blend that works for you.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the richness and diversity of channeled teachings.
Me too.
It's like there's this whole universe of wisdom out there just waiting to be explored.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? The journey of spiritual discovery is never ending. There's always more to learn, more to experience, and more to grow from.
So for anyone listening who's feeling called to explore these teachings further, where would you recommend they start?
I always encourage people to start with what feels most intriguing to them. If the cosmic mysteries of the law of one spark your curiosity, dive into those texts. If you're drawn to the practical wisdom and positive vibes of Abraham Hicks, start there, trust your intuition, and follow your own unique path of discovery.
And remember, it's not about finding the right answer or the perfect teaching. It's about the journey itself and the insights you gain along the way.
Well said. And who knows? You might just discover something profound about yourself and the universe along the way.
That's what it's all about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's been a fascinating journey.
It really has. The pleasure was all mine. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep expanding your consciousness. The possibilities are infinite.